everybody to stand with your left foot in front of your right foot, kind of like you're in a lunge. Good. And now this is as much visual as it is musical. So let's look down our line. Are we in a straight line? Lovely. And drummers, you want to hold your drums straight out. Arms are secure, like locked elbows. And you hold it kind of right in front of your face. Very good. Now you want to angle your drum just a little bit. Both mallets, and this is our doon. Okay, so we're going to take both mallets and we're just going to hit. Doon, like that. Everybody together. Yeah, pretty good. Let's try it again. Ready, go. Great. Okay, so let's do our doon again. Why don't we do 4 doons? And I want to hear you speak the word while you hit. Okay, so it's just D-U-N, doon. Okay, so ready? 3, 4. Good. Were you shouting those words?
I didn't shout.
Just shout it out. This is a loud thing. Okay? Alright, ready, go. Yeah, pretty good, pretty good. Now you can put your drums down, rest your arms a minute. Now our ka is a mallet strike, like this. So we're going to go ka, 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 like that. Ready? So get into your stance. So you've just dooned, and now we're going to do 4 kas. Ready? 3, 4. Ka, 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 ka. Good. No, 1, 2, ready, go. Good. We need to do that again. Angie.
So on the kas, your legs are straight.
Yeah, so we're doon,
You're going up.
ka.
Yeah.
Doon. Let's all just practice the motion, the up and down with our bodies. You can just hold your drums at the side if you want. So everybody's in a lunge. Left leg is in front. All right, so we're down on our doon, we're up on our ka. Ready, go. Doon, ka, doon, ka, doon, 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 doon. Very good. And then we repeat that phrase. We do it twice through. Ready, go. Doon, ka, doon, ka, doon, 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 doon. Doon, ka, doon, ka, doon, 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 doon. 3, go. And the corresponding voice ranges. So first let's identify, what are these 4 stages? Who can identify one of the stages? Who did the reading? Don't sit in that row, please. Thank you. Yes. Yes, I will get out of the way. Can you see? So it's really stage 1. And in the article, Gackel identifies stage 1, 2A, 2B, and stage 3. And I'll give you a hint. This is on page 22 of the article. Anyone? Anyone? What? Oh, people are pulling up notes. All right, that's good. Yeah. That's really close. Pre-pubertal, we say. Yeah. Do you want to write it on the board? Great. And what are the characteristics of the singing voice in stage 1? Yeah, exactly. Good. Light, a flute-like quality. This is where you might get students that have that new sound, that boy choir sound. In your boys, you'll have girls with a light soprano sound. Will the voice be flexible? Thank you so much. Will the voice be flexible? Some are saying not really, some are saying yes. Hmm?
No, it's not.
Why do you say no, Garrick?
The voice is inflexible because of the, sorry.
Are you sure in stage 1?
In stage 1.
In stage 1, when the kids are like ages 8 to 10. We're not talking about first graders who haven't developed any kind of range. We're not talking about limited range singer. Yeah. It's not limited range, right. It does have some flexibility, right. And we normally will see our 4th and 5th grade students, even sometimes our 6th grade students, those girls who have not yet hit puberty and are still 11, we'll often see those students be able to sing 4ths and 5ths and intervals that are a little wider than they were able to sing in, say, 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade. This voice range is a bit wide. You may be surprised by this. The low note being B flat, the high note being F. But this bracket, D to D, that's the comfortable tessitura that Gackle has identified. And I think that that's fairly accurate. And you may have some low kids and some high kids, but right in here is a pretty acceptable range. And when you're planning repertoire for the students in their pre-pubertal stage, you want to plan repertoire that falls within that octave. That's going to be the best for those students. Are there any questions about that? I heard an interesting story. I don't remember if it was on the news last night or if it was the day before, but about girls in America hitting puberty younger and younger. I think it was last night's news. They were talking about this. And the consequences of going through puberty at a younger age. And they were talking, of course, about the development of cancer at an earlier age and other things like that. But what are the implications for us as teachers of singing when the children are hitting puberty at a younger and younger age? I don't know what you think.
You're going to have a really varied assortment of kids in your choir where some have hit puberty so they can't sing the stuff that the non-pubertal kids can sing.
Yeah.
And then the non-pubertal kids, it's vice versa, works both ways.
Yeah, you're going to have kids in all different stages of their puberty and in their voice development in your choirs. And if you're planning a 4th grade choir, let's say, and you're thinking that you've got all kids in stage 1, because at that point they're 9, and that's right in that pre-pubertal stage, but you've got a couple kids that are already at 2A or 2B, which we'll talk more about in just a second, you're going to have some problems, probably, in planning that music. There was another hand.
There's less time for the students to develop their voice before it starts to change.
Absolutely. That's a really good point.
The training that you get before the change is going to affect how the change happens and what goes on afterwards.
Absolutely. So if you plan on 4 or 5 years of curricular choral teaching to students, yet say in 3rd grade, because we turn 8 when we're in 3rd grade, most of us did. And according to the study that was reported last night, some girls are as young as 8 when they're starting their menstruation, and that's a big problem, right? Yeah, and when I was a young person, the average age I think was 11, and that's a big shift in 20 years, a big shift. And they're linking it to obesity, which doesn't relate to this class, but they're saying that as Americans are getting bigger and bigger, these hormonal shifts are happening sooner and sooner. So it's something to really think about. Was there another hand? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's also important to keep in mind their emotional development. So even if physically their voices are pretty developed, like, just being careful not to push them and be sensitive to what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Because even though technically their bodies have matured, they're still 8 or 9, and they're going to be in a different place than when a 11-year-old or 12-year-old hits puberty. Yeah, it's very different. All right, let's move on to stage 2A. Who's got stage 2A for us? Lindsay. Pubescence? Yeah, pubescence or pre-menarchal, right? Menarcheal. And we say that that's a student whose ages 11 to 12, sometimes as late as 13. And who can tell us what are the voice characteristics of someone who is in stage 2A? Lindsay, you can come up and write that. Isn't that fun? Yeah.
Breathiness?
We might have some breathiness. What would the breathiness be a symptom of?
The beginning changes that they're getting in their larynx specifically, and I think it says something about
the chink, right? Absolutely. Very good. As our vocal folds are beginning to get bigger, we are going to notice some of that. But there's going to be a lot of difficulty in singing, just discomfort when singing. It's like anything when you're going through a growth spurt, there's just general discomfort. Well, think about this as your laryngeal growth spurt, and you're going to have some discomfort when singing. The article refers to these students having a particular difficult time with using a loud volume, having a dynamic range that's appropriate for the music. And they're saying that what Daniela was suggesting, don't push the kids too much here, because if they can't achieve that forte volume and you're like, more, they're probably not going to be able to do that in a healthy way. What about the chest voice here? What happens in the chest versus head voice? Ryan already said we get breathy, and that alludes more to the top of the voice, but what about the chest? Yeah.
They bring their chest up way too high.
Right, because what are we trying to achieve? What are kids often doing when they're 11 to 13?
Kind of that mature.
Yep, they get that mature pop sound, they're belting a lot, right? This is a lot of times, think about the middle school years, this is maybe the first time you've had a musical at your school, and kids are auditioning for these musicals and they're belting right through stage 2A. We're still in that D to D tessitura, but look, now we've got a low A, and that's going to cause that chest, if the kid's got a real strong low A, they might be tempted to bring that chest up, 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 and all of a sudden we can belt a high D. I remember when I was in middle school, in 8th grade, we did the Wiz. No, we didn't do the Wiz, that was 7th grade. 8th grade, we did Little Legend of Terror. It was one of those, like, terrible musicals in this little book. Anyhow, and I was Mrs. Berserker. It was pretty crazy. Yep, I had this terrible coat and a big clutch that was like, looked like a tapestry. Anyway, and I was really excited because there was a C, like this C, in my song that I had to sing. And I was so excited I got my belt up to that C. And I was probably 12, 13. And I was like, yes, I've got my belt. I remember this, sitting at my piano and working to get my belt as high as I could. Well, going back now, thinking back now, that was probably the worst thing I could have done. But it was exciting. I felt like I was really achieving something great. And probably some of you ladies have similar stories to tell. But this will happen to your middle school kids. Garrett.
Speaking of Alice, just let me know that she just pulled in, they're walking up now.
Thank you so much. Okay. So this will probably happen when you're teaching middle school students. And if you're not going to teach middle school students, you still need to be aware of what's happening. Okay, let's move on. Stage 3. What have we got in stage 3? Yep, that's when we're saying that puberty is definitely hitting. Could it have been before? Of course it could have been before. Could it be after? Of course. But we are saying typically puberty is going to happen here, ages 13 to 14. Quite frankly, I think that's a little on the late side for most girls today, especially in light of what's happening in the news. But some of you will probably experience a good amount of students who hit puberty right at that age. Garrett, do you want to write that up for us? Look at how the tessitura lowers. We're lowering a third in the bottom, and we're lowering a whole step in the top. Why? Why are we a little bit lower, do you think? Denzel?
Because the vocal folds are getting thicker and longer.
The girls' vocal folds have grown, right. And as they've gotten bigger, we may have experienced a drop. Yep, you're going to find girls that are truly altos now, right? Or getting to that alto stage, if you've had kids that are already through the puberty. But also remember, when you're at puberty, you've got a bit of a more limited range than other times. So it makes sense that we're going to get a little lower as our top has gotten weaker just for this time. We're kind of at the end of that vocal fold growth spurt now. We're developed, but we're trying to find our way with these new vocal folds. And our range is different. Our top has also gone down for our kind of our extreme ranges, and our bottom has stayed at the A. What are some symptoms of puberty? How would you know that your girls are going through this? Yeah.
Voice cracking.
Absolutely. A lot of voice cracking, just like with the men that we talked about last week. A lot of voice cracking happening. Hoarseness is going to happen. What were you going to say?
I was going to say lack of clarity.
Absolutely. Yeah, she does mention lack of clarity in the tone. So what does that mean? What do we hear if it sounds lack of clarity? What are we listening for? What are we listening for?
They're looking pretty like breathy, and there's no pure resonance to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, come on, you can go up and sit over there. Hi. Right, so we're probably not going to have a lot of resonance. Focus in the tone. We're going to still have that breathy quality, especially on our top. What's happening with the belt? Are kids still tempted to belt? I would say definitely, yeah. I would quite frankly say no matter what the age is, the children are still going to be tempted to belt. I mean, even now, there are times when I'm like, let me just get my belt on, and I just want to sing it out and have, a lot of fun with something. And I have to remind myself, no, even though it's fun, I can't do that. And I saw Lindsay shake her head back there. I know. Some of us get excited, especially when we're doing vocal jazz or Broadway, things like that. It's like, oh, this is great. But it's not always good for the voice, and especially not for your 13-year-old who's just gone through puberty, right? Not a good idea. Good, and of course, we're still having difficulty or discomfort in singing. Some of our young ladies will still feel a little bit of pain at times when singing, or they will just feel like they don't have the notes they used to have. This is a time period where you might wind up losing some kids, because as their voices have changed, same with the boys, right? As their voices have changed and they start to feel like it's harder, their voice is cracking, it doesn't sound as good, and they think, I think the field hockey team is falling and I'm not going to be singing anymore, right? They might switch activities or feel frustrated by their singing. And that's the time when we, as the vocal teachers, have to get in there and say, I can help you with this. It's going to be okay, and I know strategies to help you get over this, right? All right, let's talk about our final stage, stage 3. What do we call that? Yeah.
Young adult female.
Young adult female. Stage 3 is just everything after puberty. Of course, there's other classifications that are going to happen further down the line. We've got the maturing voice. We've got a voice shift that may happen to some women in their 20s. But for today, we're going to stop at, say, age 18, and we're going to say the last thing that you might deal with as a vocal teacher is this. And we say that the students hit their young adult female voice between the ages of 14, 15, maybe as late as 16. They're going to kind of reach that. So you can see these age ranges vary. You might have a child that's still in puberty in their voice until age 15 or 16 if they're finally getting to this. Who said number 3? Who wants to write that up? Yeah, come on. I don't know what this is the good marker to keep it in my bag. All right, good. So what does Gackel say about once we've reached the adult female voice? What does she say about what's going to happen to the voice? Evan?
Well, she labels them as light and rich sopranos because she says you can't call them true altos yet, or true sopranos.
Right.
And
as the voice is still developing to find those ranges, yeah.
Yeah, she says that you will regain the flexibility and the breathiness should decrease.
Yeah. What about the belt? If our breathiness is going to decrease, we'll get more clarity, but what about those lower pitches?
I'm going to say that they force them less.
I would hope that your students would now be able to find that evenness in their registers, but I think it's going to take a lot of work from you to help them find that balance. Right? I mean, we talked a lot in previous classes about going through the registers and finding where the lifts are and getting them over that, because there's still going to be kids that are nervous about cracking. I mean, there are times that I am still nervous about cracking, depending on how warmed up I am. And you're going to really need to help your students with that so that they're not belting as much as they probably were here, right? And now our range has widened. Our sopranos probably have a pretty comfortable high A, or our light voices, and our richer voices probably are comfortable with the low A, maybe even the G. She has a G in parentheses in her chart in the article. And here's our tessitura, a much, much wider comfort zone for singing. Ladies, what do you think about all this? Do you think this is pretty accurate to your experience? Who knows? Who remembers? Sammy's saying yes. You want to tell us?
I just definitely remember when I was younger only really having like very airy tone and not really a lot of support sounding, but it was like, you know, like a pretty voice, but it wasn't like anything substantial. And then I went to like a musical theater camp, I guess when I was going into 8th grade, and there was this one guy was like, just sing out, so I just like sang as loud as I could, and then I was like, ooh, I like that. And that was when I like found like my belt voice, which is what I like I remember going back to choir, and I was like, let me show you what I learned this summer. And I like sang for her, just like a big belt voice, and she was like, well, let's just keep that for later. And in choir, we're not going to sing like that. And I was like, okay, but I was like really excited about it. Yeah, I was really excited about it. And then, you know, I got to high school and I got all the musicals, and I was like, that's my thing, like I whatever. But then I got here, and like I said, like once I started training classically, like I realized that it's really bad for me to sing the way I was singing.
Yeah, really and you found it mostly from your throat, right?
Exactly, yeah, it wasn't supported. It was like from my throat, and so now I just don't really sing like that anymore.
Yeah, good. Dana?
I don't remember for myself, but I have a young lady I've been working with since she was 13. She's just turning 15 this month. And I think she's just just moving into the young adult female phase because lately her range has been expanding a bit and her breathiness is like disappearing.
But that's
The
great.
past several months, I'm like seeing this as we're talking about this. I'm just picturing her and what's been happening the past 2 years that she's basically come through.
That's great that you can see that. Remember, though, that breathiness, and I mean, obviously Dana's giving us a clear example of breathiness caused by the hormonal shift as our vocal cords are developing. But breathiness can be caused by a lot of things, right? Bad posture, tension in the neck and jaw, just a feeling of reaching or being unsupported, singing from the throat instead of from our diaphragm and from a support mechanism. So we want to, when we're diagnosing breathiness, be sure that we're always thinking about everything else that could be causing it. But I think that sounds exactly like what Gackel's describing with these stages. Very good. 1, 2, 3. Here we go again. 1, 2, 3. Good. Can we go in again without me? In, Sunny. In the sunny afternoon. Just a little bit higher, and if you just put a little smile in there, you'll get it. All right, y'all know that little bit of choral trick? A little smile, nice and sharper, good. Or just brighter sounding. All right, 48, everybody move on. Ready, 1, 2, 3. Have a little bit of schmaltz right there as we slow down, and then we'll go, and 1. Tricky vowel, right? Because we're on where, we don't really know where we're singing, but we just go where, and then end it. It'll be better.
The Mexican spices do die out the part of cooking. Oh no, don't forget the Mexican spices do die out. Chili con carne, 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 aha, that's right. Chili con carne, 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 chicky pie, chicky pie,
Great, let's stop right there. So each one of those little so's, let's let that drive to the downbeat. Let that have a little bit of energy crescendo through it every single time you do that. You're going to have a soprano alto, soprano 2 alto crescendo at 60. Hang on one second. On beat 3 and 4. That just drives to wah, ba da da ba ba. So make sure that you're not breathing between there for the soprano too and the altos, okay?
Isn't the BAI, is it bi or mid?
Bye.
Okay.
Give me an example of it.
Measure 67.
Thank you.
That's fine.
Yeah, bye. Bye. Yeah, thank you. And we're not going to chew that diphthong, right? Bye, not bye. Yeah, just making sure. Okay. That would be scary for me. Was there another hand? No? Great. Let's add those things in there. At 57, we're listening for the soprano too and the alto, of course. There are places where when we come all back together, like at 62, we're really listening across to make sure we're all really homophonic in that. We've got everything is together. Okay? But the listening needs to be support from the bottom three voices listening for that melody coming through. Okay, 57. Excuse me. Just roll it. Thank you. So. Okay, let's stop right there. So 57 again, that time it sounded like the alto and soprano too were trying to rise up above the choir. When I want everybody else to kind of lower it so they can still stay light, kind of have that sultry, lower female voice sound. Okay, so don't make them press, don't make them belt. Let them